Good day. I am Novertense Angeles, my English student, and I will be reporting creative and critical writing. Creative writing versus critical writing. The primary difference between creative and critical writing is one of locus. Creative writing presumes the presence of something like a writer's studio. Setting is more relaxed than the habitat of critical writing, which requires an office, a professional building, a lab, as it were. Similarly, creative writing, the location where writing is published or also establishes its nature. So, critical writing goes to research journals, and creative writing goes to magazines that publish poetry, fiction, and essays. So we have types of creative writing. So we have fiction. So most pieces of fiction have a plot, characters, and sense of setting, themes in the decided narrator or narrative perspective. An example of a work of fiction is If Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Creative nonfiction. Creative nonfiction can vary widely but generally has a sense of setting. Some characters, even if these characters are real rather than fictional. Figurative and descriptive language in some sort of plot or purpose. A common example of creative nonfiction is travel writing, such as Bill Bryson's The Road to Little Dribbling. Poetry. Poetry has numerous conventions, including lines and stanzas, rhyme, rhythm, and meter. However, not all types of poetry will have all of these. For instance, prose poetry might not rhyme or have a traditional stanza format. Poetry tends to make use of figurative language and other literary devices quite extensively. A poetry example is Langston Hughes' Harlem. The last types of creative writing is script writing. Script writing can vary a lot as well, depending on what type of production the script is intended for, such as stage, TV, film, etc. Still, it generally requires a plot, sense of setting, tone, characters, as well as corresponding language styles, stage directions, and signposting. Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman is an example of script writing. Yun po yung sa creative writing. We can go now to critical writing. Critical writing, generally, it refers to involving judgment or criticism. However, it might also mean a turning point. In the context of the article, we'll discuss in its former meaning. Critical analysis in the form that we know it today started with the idea of critical thinking. So, what was it? Critical thinking is the evaluation not only of the sources of information, but ideas and arguments around them as well. As a reader, you cannot believe everything that is written. You need to evaluate the data as it is the basis of academic debate. The effectiveness of critical thinking depends on skepticism and objectivity. Skepticism, doubt and question everything you see, means you do not accept the information upon seeing it. You thoroughly question it beforehand. Objectivity on the other hand, provide a neutral perspective on your argument. Try to think of every single thing that might influence your attitude. Critical thinking skills led to the creation of critical writing. It's an analysis in a written form that requires evaluating the evidence and coherently expressing of thoughts. If you know how to present your ideas, composing one won't be challenging. So critical writing appeared during the Renaissance when the arts started to criticize the church. So we have two historical figures affected its development in particular. The first one is Jean Baptiste Molière, the master of comedic drama. He was one of few people to continue creating dramatic works even though the church labeled them as anti-Christian. So after Molière wrote his comedy Tartuffe, aka The Hypocrite, which deeply criticized the church, the priest targeted Molière in his work. Even the king couldn't protect him once this comedy hit the stage. But this was just the beginning. So, second one, we have Immanuel Kant. So, the German philosopher brought critique into the realm theory that became close to using our modern review method. In his aesthetic work called Critique of Judgment, he examined the variability and logic behind judgment of taste. Based on his aesthetic theory, many pieces of writing critics came into being. So, nonetheless, the critical writing process carried on to make a name for itself in the 21st century. This time turned aesthetics into the commerce and shaped comprehensive critical analysis into what we know them as today. So, dyan po nagtatapos ang aking report about creative writing and critical writing. So, thank you so much and God bless.